Hey, what's up guys? Thanks for stopping by the channel. So this video is meant to be more of an in the field review for my recently acquired Tutima Seven Seas diver in this signal orange colorway. Now if you're not familiar with the brand Tutima, they are based in Glashütte, Germany, and they've been putting out watches for numerous years. Most notably, they've been commissioned to do watches for the German military, and they've even had a short stint commissioning watches to the American Air Force as well. What drew me in about this particular watch is that I did want a good diver that had a pop of color, and this signal orange colorway is great. This watch also has a day and date complication, something I'm currently missing in my collection. And the added benefit I really enjoy about this watch is that it's done completely in bead blasted titanium for the head of the watch, as well as the integrated style H-link bracelet. Now I'm going to crunch the numbers quickly because I do think some people might be intimidated if they just look at the spec sheet at a glance, because it is a 44 millimeter case diameter. But the way that they do the lug-to-lug measurement, it's also only 44 millimeters, making it almost like a square watch. But the lug design themselves are kind of hooded lugs that fasten the bracelet to the head of the watch quite well, and it's very integrated in fact. I think the lug spacing, if you wanted to swap out the bracelet for a strap later, is around 26 millimeters. And then the bracelet does taper nicely as you move away from the head of the watch down to about 21 millimeters, and then you hit the Tutima signed clasp, which is around 22 millimeters in width, very well machined with a twin trigger deployment mechanism, and it even has a fully milled diver's extension on the underside of a clasp, something you don't often see at the price point. Now speaking on price, this watch does retail for around $2,300 US on the bracelet, and you can save yourself a few hundred if you go with a strap option from Tutima. They have a very nice composite rubber and Kevlar style strap, but for me, I did want to go the bracelet route because I do think it just balances out the head of the watch quite well. And in terms of how this watch wears, it's extremely comfortable on my 7.5-inch wrist. This guy only weighs in at about 135 grams when you consider the bracelet and head of the watch because of that grade 2 titanium. If you were to try and size the bracelet yourself, they do have screw links for individual links that have a slot head on the top. That being said, the slot head that is found for the individual links is quite tiny, so you need a very precise screwdriver and some patience if you're going to try and unscrew the links and then refasten them once you size it to fit your wrist. Now the automatic movement inside this watch is something that Tutima calls, I think, their caliber 300. It's really just based off of an ETA movement with a day and date complication. So you're getting about 40 hours of power reserve. It ticks away at 4 hertz. It's hacking and hand wind as well. And it's all done through a fairly small crown, which I was worried about because it's sub 6 millimeters in thickness. But the way that they actually have the width of the crown with the crown guards, it's still quite easy to grip and operate, and winding and rethreading the crown to ensure that 500 meters of water resistance is actually quite easy to do. Now, like most German watches out there, I do think that they prioritize legibility and durability, and this watch definitely has that. The hour markers and the handset themselves are painted stark white for easy viewing. Now, because they are hand painted, the Swiss Superluminova is quite potent, but it might not be as evenly applied as if it was done with a lume fill techniques like you find on a lot of other Swiss divers within the same price segment. But on the whole, I didn't have any problems with the low light legibility of the lume. It just might appear a little bit more grainy and not as evenly applied as you might find on some other divers on the market. Now, to aid in the visual interest of a dial too, there's also a nice rehaut or a chapter ring that does have your running minutes on the outskirts of the dial, and it does have Arabic numerals for each hour indication that's there. The day and date display is also quite legible because it's a black date disc with white text, and you can get the day of the week either in German or in English, which is kind of a cool feature to have. Now, I like the design of the 60-click unidirectional bezel, but that being said, the bezel is quite thin and difficult to grip, and I'm not sure what happened with my particular model, but it started out clicking very precisely, but then the click spring got very, very tight, and now I can't even rotate the bezel. But I think that's just an isolated example that's specific to my Signal Orange diver here, but it is a QC thing that I would like to mention and hopefully Tutima can address in the future. Now, there are some other points for improvement that I'd like to discuss because again, for me, this is a really great daily driver that's very comfortable, even when I'm doing these type of hikes on this drab and rainy day here. As much as I like the handset with those broad sword style hands, I do think that they are a little bit too short for the dial diameter. So if they could somehow extend the length of the seconds hand and the minute hand to reach out and touch that minute track, that would be great to see in the future. I think I already touched on the fact that the lume isn't as evenly as plied as you might find on other divers that are out there. That bezel action, for me, is pretty much non-existent at this point. And the crown, while it is easy to operate, I do wish that they would actually make a little bit larger in diameter. So if, for example, I was out in the winter or taking this diving with gloves on, it would be easier to operate if necessary after the watch got a little bit wet. But outside of that, guys, I really want to emphasize that this is one of the most comfortable divers that I've owned in titanium. And I've owned quite a few from the likes of like Citizen, Grand Seiko, and even Tudor. And I do think that Tutima is an underrated brand. Currently, there's only like 2 authorized dealers in Canada. I picked mine up from an authorized dealer in Quebec, and I think there's one out west in BC. But if you guys have also experienced this brand or have any questions or comments about this particular diver, make sure to leave your feedback in the comment section of this video. And as always, if you do enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. It does always help out. And I can't wait to catch you guys in the next video.